Hi, I'm Colin, and this is Sci-Fi Deep Dive. Now today we're going to be discussing, in general, one of my favorite periods in the Halo canon timeline, and that is the Human Covenant War. The Human Covenant War provides a setting for Halo 1, 2, 3, ODST, and Reach, as well as the first Halo Wars game. So the Human Covenant War is a 27-year-long struggle between humanity as a whole, under the United Nations Space Command, and the Covenant. Now I'm going to cover these factions pretty quickly because I'll do dedicated videos for each one of them at a later date. So the Covenant is this collection of alien races sort of unified under a very religious government that worships an ancient race of aliens called the Forerunners. Well, humanity in the 26th century has expanded outward, but still not made contact with intelligent alien life. Hundreds of systems all serve a centralized government based on Earth. Now, it had its problems. The UNSC was struggling with a vicious civil war at the time of first contact with the Covenant. Now, after first contact in between humanity and the Covenant, Covenant leadership figured out that humanity could be considered a successor to the Forerunners and a threat to their religion, and as such, they began a campaign against humanity. A campaign with the very specific purpose of wiping humanity out. It was sort of akin to island hopping in World War II, planet hopping. They would go from planet to planet to planet, and the human forces would put up a defense, eventually fall, the planet would be melted to glass, and they would continue on to the next planet. This continued until the very end of the war, when the tenets of the Covenant religion was shaken by a few battles on Forerunner relics. These battles, by the way, are what we see in Halos 1, 2, and 3. There are a few key aspects of the Human Covenant War that really stick out to me and really seem to be sort of the core of what the war represents and what the war is. The first being sacrifice. The story of humanity's struggle against the Covenant is filled with heroes making sacrifices to try to hold back this almost unstoppable tide of destruction that is the Covenant war machine. Mind you, the Covenant were considerably more advanced than humanity, so the battles almost always went in the Covenant's favor. And on the few occasions where they didn't go in the Covenant's favor, the Covenant would counterattack and the victory wouldn't be very long-lived. It wasn't until the very end of the war, when the Covenant slid into its own civil war and the tenets of its religion were shaken, that humanity started to have a fighting chance. So the entire war, even in those last days, is characterized as desperate last stands. It's always people not just defending strategic points, but defending their homes and their families. It made every single fight the UNSC fought feel desperate. And it gave character to the UNSC defenders, since they weren't just out there fighting a war for some politician, but they were fighting for their homes and things that they really valued. Now, I'm not saying we don't see this in other places in the Halo timeline, but it is most prominent during this war. The war kind of plays out like the countless alien invasion scenarios we see in movies, TVs, and games, but stretched across a multitude of planets. In 2552, at the very end of the war, just as the Covenant are finding Earth, the war starts to turn in humanity's favor. The Covenant leadership, the Prophets, has a falling out with the warrior race, the Elites. This confrontation ends in the Elites being replaced by the Brutes. Feeling betrayed by their religious leaders, a lot of the Elites decided to leave the Covenant and start their own faction, and thus began a civil war. This civil war is really the only reason humanity was able to pull through in the end. I'll do a video on the very end of the war at some point in the future, and there's a lot to talk about Halo, so don't worry, there'll be plenty of Halo content coming up in the future. But if you enjoyed what you saw here today, or just want more sci-fi discussions, head down below at the subscribe button and the bell icon so you get notified when I upload new videos. Also, don't forget to like and leave a comment. Tell me what your favorite part of the Halo timeline is. Is it the Human Covenant War? Is it the post-war era? Do you have a favorite battle or a moment in this massive franchise's fictional history? So for Sci-Fi Deep Dive, I'm Colin, and I will see you next time.